Pierre, was good? How you doing?
What's going on, brother? I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
I can't complain, man. I was gonna say say, but I'm gonna let it rock.
Nah, man.
Um,
Say that, man. Come on, man. Stop that, man. Think about it. Come on here, man. Get your quiet, man.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, this is Pierre Laguerre. He's the CEO and founder of Fleeting, which is a platform that is designed to connect companies with qualified and reliable CDL drivers. But we'll get more into that later into the conversation. But just want to kick it off. My first question here is, what was Pierre like as a kid growing up in Haiti?
Man, what was Pierre like in Haiti? That's a good question. And now all the memories are coming back to me. In Haiti, to be very honest with you, man, I was one of the brilliant, smartest kids in my school in Haiti. Went to a gifted school. As a kid, I had this dream of I wanted to be a doctor. As you know, growing up in Haitian household, either you're a doctor or a lawyer or engineer. If you're not any one of those three, you're a bum, you're a loser. And for me, I didn't being a doctor wasn't because that's what my mom told me that I had to do. I remember being very early, going outside playing soccer with no shoes on, just walking, roaming the street, and I would catch a beating. And then 2 minutes later, I'll be right back doing the same thing. And I used to try to reason with myself, right? Like, okay, what is causing me to do this? Is it me or is it my brain telling me to do this, knowing that I'm going to get in trouble? So ever since then, man, I was really like amazed by the brain on how it worked. So I had in my mind that I wanted to come to the U.S. and be a neurologist. But growing up in Haiti, I've went through all the struggles you could think of. I've witnessed all the major political wars that was going on in Haiti under the president Aristide at the time. So I've seen all of it, man. Seen it all. Seen the good side of Haiti and also seen a horrible side of Haiti as well. But it was a great experience that I truly miss today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing the story. It's always interesting to hear how people, their upbringing and like how they got in trouble too. So I
Absolutely,
appreciate you
man.
sharing that.
Yep.
So yeah, I kind of backtracking as well. Pierre and I met at the Black New Venture competition at HBS last spring, and I also was working at Republic for some time interning and while I was in my MBA. But just curious from how as you look back on your career, like did you always want to become an entrepreneur?
To be honest with you, no, I wouldn't say yes. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Although there was entrepreneurs around me, I guess I didn't know at the time that's who they were. For example, my stepdad, he owned a welding business back home. He did all the gates for all major, housing or major project in Haiti. My mom was actually a seamstress, and I watched my mom. My mom never really left out the house for work. What we used to see is a lot of different women models that come in and get their dress made, whether they're going to a wedding, whatever the situation was. Well, put it this way, my house was the spot. If you wanted anything done, your clothes, that's what my mother made. Even our uniform back home in Haiti, as you know, Haiti, you don't go to school with regular clothes. You have to have uniform. So my mom used to be the one making our uniform at home. So for me, it was like, I didn't say that, maybe at the time I didn't understand what entrepreneurship was, but I knew that at some point in time, I always wanted to have my own business because I realized how my mom and my dad, especially my mom was always there, right? We wake up, we have breakfast, eat like a family, like, we're Haitian. We had go to school, come back, lunch is on the table. We did everything together as a family. So seeing that from my mom's side, I think kind of sparked the interest to say, you know what, eventually I want to have my own business, but I didn't know that it was going to turn out this way.
That's incredible. And I kind of skipped over this, but I know you moved from Haiti to the States to New York at the age of 14 or 15 with your mom, your four siblings. So I'm sure that was a pretty interesting change of dynamics moving from Haiti straight to New York. And you moved to Brooklyn, or where did you move?
Exactly, Brooklyn, man, East Flatbush, one of the roughest neighborhood in Brooklyn at the time. So it was a rough experience, to be honest with you. Dealt with culture shock. As you know, you in Haiti, all you've seen is the beautiful building, the beautiful lights. You say, hey, look, I'm gonna come to this country, and trying to be anything that I can be, which is the American dream. But unfortunately for me, I landed in Flatbush in Brooklyn, or we call it the hood, the ghetto. So I was like, okay, well, what happened to all those beautiful buildings that I was seeing on TV? The norm was really seeing crackheads in the street, gang banging, seeing young men losing their life early. And it was much more cultural shock for me. And I think we'll get into the conversation more. And that's exactly what led to me becoming a trucker, because I was actually looking to escape that community. I was looking to, not become a statistic or a product of that environment. And I said, well, maybe I should just get a CDL and just drive this country and don't have to come back to the same shitty place. But as shitty as I can call it, I do appreciate it for what it is because it made me who I am today. And I know there's millions of others that still live in those communities similar to mine that are looking for an opportunity. And once again, this is exactly why Fleeting exists. We want to be able to extend the opportunity to those people in those communities and show them like, hey, look, if Pierre can come from Haiti, you're right, and be a trucker, build multiple businesses in the logistics space, and now being a tech entrepreneur, I think that's a strong message for those people in those communities. Say, hey, you know what? Maybe I can do it myself, and let me put some work in.
I love it. I love it. And it's one of the reasons why I had heard a little bit of your story at HBS and then some of the subsequent interviews. So I knew I had to get you on the show, and I really appreciate you kind of sharing that. And it kind of follows up to my next question. Could you talk about your path to Fleeting? Like at what point did you see a need for this platform? And most importantly, why were you the person to execute it?
Wow, great question again, man. So I think for me, it was really, once again, going back to that community, right? It was, as you know, when you're in those communities, we don't have no role model. We don't have the doctors to look up to. We don't have the lawyers to look up to. We don't have the entrepreneurs to look up to. We look up to the drug dealers, the gangbangers, right? And the reality is, those were the people that I actually looked up to because those are the people that had, somewhat of success, right? They had the nice cars, they had the women, they had all those things, but this is what you kind of see in those communities. But for me is one thing that really kind of sparked my mind to really start looking into deeper. After graduated high school, my uncle took me on a cruise, right? It was a 7-day cruise. We went, I can't remember exactly where we went, but we went to some beautiful island. We went to Mexico, Cayman Island, Turk and Caicos. And what that cruise did is spark something in my mind, which I believe everyone should really experience. What I realized was my world did not revolve around that shitty community. It was better outside in the community that I lived in. So until I got outside of that community, I realized there was better. Then I started thinking, okay, well, how do I live this life every day, right? So thinking, okay, well, I need to escape. I don't want to become a statistic. I was studying electrical engineering after I graduated college. And, financial hardship, it was hard, man, going to school with 4 siblings. Like I said, my dad wasn't around. There was times I remember I couldn't even make it to school because I didn't have train fares, right? So I said, you know what, hell with this. I'm just gonna get my CDL. My mom was disappointed, which every Haitian parent would. And I got my CDL and became a trucker, worked for XPO Logistics for my first couple of years, then went on to work for Performance Food Group, where I started doing food deliveries in local schools and hospitals and restaurants. And unfortunately for me, I started doing food deliveries in the same school that I was going to, right?
Heard the story.
So I was thinking about that. I was embarrassed. But my professor actually at the time was a Haitian math professor as well. And he saw me one day doing a delivery, trying to rush in with a case of bottle, with a hand truck full of cases of water and trying to get into the delivery. So here I am hiding, trying to hide my face. And he walked up to me and said, "What's going on, man? Why are you hiding?" I said, "Well, I jumped out of school to be a trucker. I didn't want to look like a loser." He said, "Loser?" He said, "How much are you making a year?" And at the time, I was making good money. I was making about $90K a year. And he said, "Man, listen," he said, "half of these kids is going to graduate and they're not going to see $90K a year." So he said, "Look, I want you to own it, be prideful, and be the best trucker you can be." And honestly, man, that message really, really resonated with me. As being a driver myself, I was always trying to find ways to learn financial literacy. How do I build, income? And I started trading stocks, and I did about $57,000 that year and purchased my very first truck and became an owner operator. Now, when you own an operator, it's a different monster than when you're just a truck driver, work for a trucking company. You have to understand your unit economics. You have to understand how to build business relationship. You have to understand how to communicate with your customers. And those are the things that I learned early on. Although I started doing well as an owner operator, but I felt like there was something missing. So I parked my truck up, went to Wagner College and took a course for supply chain logistics. And that course really kind of exposed trucking to me on a macro level. But I was much more eager to understand it on a micro level, on a day-to-day operation.
Right.
So I went on to take a course to become a freight broker. Now, in freight broker school, and this is not to vilify any brokers in this space today, but we have bad players all across different sectors in trucking. But in broker school, that's when I realized that brokers really make money on truckers' ignorance, right? Truckers don't understand unit economics, like I was saying. They don't understand how to build relationship with shippers. They don't know how to manage their business efficiently. So they depend on a freight broker to do that for them. And that actually come with a course. So it didn't resonate with me to go out there and build a brokerage firm. So what I thought, I said, well, you know what? I know there's always drivers looking for a company that can provide some level of flexibility. And there's always companies looking for drivers, with great talent. So I said to myself, well, I had read a book called What the CEO Wants You to Know, which I don't know if I even want to get into this story, but you know what? We got time. I'll get into it for you. So before I even started any other business after I took those courses, I got into a car accident, right? In that car accident, I pretty much lost everything, man. Within 9 months, blew through my savings. I was going through a divorce at the time. I lost my truck, got repo, my car got repo. And mind you, when I became an owner operator, I was doing well for myself financially and moved out of the hood, which is Brooklyn, and moved to a nice suburban side of Jersey, which is West Orange, New Jersey. But the reality was, when everything happened, I found myself right back to square one. I found myself right back in Brooklyn, the same community that I had escaped from. Now I'm back to square one. So I'm saying to myself, okay, what is it that I need to do now? So I read a book called What the CEO Wants You to Know, right? And my takeaway from that book was volume and profit margin. So I said, okay, well, what is it that I can sell, even if it's 5 cents, but if I could sell 1 million of them, per month, I could make some money. Unfortunately, I wasn't creative enough to come up with anything. I was thinking maybe I buy zippers or buttons and go to China and buy them in bulk and come back and sell them over here.
Get the margin.
I just couldn't really get it together. But since I didn't have a car back in Brooklyn, I was walking everywhere I had to go. And once again, I started that volume and profit margin. It just stuck in my head. And I'm seeing all the beauty salons, the restaurants, the bars that have the window glass in there. And I said, well, who is cleaning those glass, right? Those windows. I said, well, if I could get 100 customers and they pay me $10 a week to clean the glass, I said, I could make $1,000 a week. And before you know it, I said, I could get back on my feet. So I went in and told a friend, I said, hey, look, man, I'm thinking about starting this window cleaning business. He looked at me and laughed. He was like, man, people going to think you a crackhead. I said, what do you mean by that? He was like, look around. Only crackhead clean windows around here. I was like, yeah. He's like, you really want to look like a crackhead? I said, well, look, here's the reality. Right now, I have nothing coming in. I am dead broke. I said, I'd rather look like a crackhead with some money than don't look like a crackhead and have nothing at all. He said, well, that's a good point. He put me to the test. He said, okay, if you get 50 stores to say yes, I'll do it with you. I said, woke up the next morning, man. I solicited the entire Brooklyn from 7 in the morning, man, to 1 in the morning, knocking on doors, say, hi, my name is Pierre. I have a service that specializes in glass cleaning. We'll do it for X, Y, and Z. That same day, I had about 72 stores agreed for me to clean their glass. Yeah. Went home.
So you brought that proof of concept back to your boy?
Absolutely, man. Went home, borrowed $80 from my little sister. I said, sis, I got this business idea. Trust me, it's gonna blow. She like, yeah, whatever. You always got a business idea. So she finally gave me the $80. By the way, shout out to Anna, my little sister. I love her to death. And she gave me the $80. Went to Home Depot, got me some squingy, got me a bucket, and got me some lime green shirts that we put on, and we was off to the races. Same thing again, when we was cleaning windows, right? I was embarrassed, I was ashamed, because people were looking like, wait, wasn't this guy that used to drive a BMW? Now he's cleaning windows. It was hard to deal with, but the minute we started money, I started becoming a little bit more comfortable. Literally, we know in 3 months, we did almost over $60,000 in cleaning glass. So when we was making that money, I was saying, well, I'm not going back to trucking. I said, this is a lot more easier. I could scale this to $1 million. Well, I was lying to myself, found out that I really went right back into trucking. And I launched my first staffing company, was a staffing agency. Back to the point that I was saying is that I've seen how trucking companies is always looking for great drivers, and drivers are always looking for a company that can treat them like a human being as opposed to being treated as a commodity. So I said, well, what if I hire those drivers, groom them, and outsource them back to the trucking companies? How would that work? I launched that business in 2015, grew it to 2.5 million in revenue in the 18 months, and then took the proceeds, started a trucking company, started with about 3 trucks and scaled that to about 16 trucks in 9 months, and also did over $1 million in revenue in the first year. But the problem was I was the only person in that company. I was everything, right? I was the driver, the supervisor, the sales guy, the dispatcher, didn't know how to delegate. And, just really learning a lot about the industry. I started understanding customer behavior, started understanding consumer behavior, understanding driver behavior. And around that time, this is when all the other tech company and logistics started to take hold. Like, companies like Convoy, had just heard they had just raised 30 million. And I'm like, okay, what is Convoy? So when I looked at what Convoy was doing, which is a digital brokerage platform, I wouldn't, not to take nothing away from what they're doing. I see the value sometime in it, but I think it wasn't nothing crazy that said hoo-ha moment. Maybe for people that's not used to logistics, and like, oh my God, this is great. But the truckers on the ground is really looking at this like, okay, well, what is this for? And for me, the value I saw in that, it was that it gives the shippers value to move their freight a lot more efficient, but it didn't give the drivers the tools that they're looking for every day to be a lot more efficient, allow them to spend time with their loved ones. So I felt like, okay, well, if this company is doing this, how do I go and build a tech company myself? How do I get in there? And before I got into that, my third son was born in 2016, and he was born with Down syndrome. And that really affected my world, man. I really didn't care about no customers then. I didn't care about no drivers. I didn't care about no trucks. All I cared about my son staying alive. Yeah. And he went through multiple heart surgeries. On a second surgery, which was in May 2018, my mom came in town from Orlando to see my son from, while he was having surgery. So I stopped at this restaurant in Brooklyn to pick up some food for my mother. And I was brutally attacked from an attempt carjacking robbery. Got my skull cracked open. If you can't, can you see a line on my head here?
No. The left ear, or faintly.
Yeah, I can send you some pictures. Horrible, but like I said, my forehead right here is not real. It's a titanium plate that I have in my forehead right there. And I could definitely say, man, like everything fell apart, So now I'm in the hospital fighting for my life. My son is fighting for his life. They don't know if we're gonna make it, but by the grace of God, we're still here. Now, if I tell you, man, when I was in the hospital, I was in a lot of pain, I'll be lying. If I tell you I didn't want revenge, I didn't want blood, I'll be lying, right? But I guess I had another connection with the higher power, with God, because I woke up after surgery and I was like, okay, well, I forgive them. My friend was looking at me like, wait, what? I said, yeah, I forgive them. They was like, no way. Like, look what they did to you. You lost your business. You almost lost your life. Somebody has to pay. I said, look, I'm not going to do anything. I said, if any one of y'all go do anything, I myself would testify. They was looking at me like, hey, I was crazy. But the reason why I really decided to not retaliate, man, to be honest with you, is that being around that community, I've realized the vicious cycle sometimes that us Black men, we can perpetrate against each other, right? And for me is I didn't want to be the person to keep that cycle going on. So I said, you know what? It stops with me. But what I also realized was, what if that young dude would have came up to me and said, Pierre, what do you do for, as opposed to trying to rob me for my watch and my chain and my car? What if he would have came to me and said, hey, look, man, what do you do for a living? 9 out of 10, I probably would have told him, hey, I'm in trucking. I own a trucking company. I teach brothers how to get their CDL and become entrepreneurs themselves. That's how the conversation would have went. But instead, as we know, is if I don't have it, I'm going to take it from the next person that look like they have it. And that's just the mentality that we have in certain community.
And you could have given him, potentially given him a job. Or something like that, and provided the opportunity for him to make whatever money he took from you or whatever he did.
Absolutely. And I did that with so many young men in my communities already. So that's why I felt like, you know what, I'm not going to retaliate. But then again, the idea of building tech was like, okay, you know what, how do I get this? And when everything fell apart, man, I remember I said to myself, no, not to myself, I said, God, if you get me at this hospital alive, I said, I will build a team. I will add technology to build a sustainable and successful company. Just get me out of here alive. And not only that, I just want to build a company, but I say, hey, look, I want to be able to build a company to where I can go back to those communities and teach young men how to get their CDL and become entrepreneurs themselves. So I came out the hospital, man, and hit the ground running, and just really going to every pitch competition and really speaking to investors. But to really answer that question is, I really feel like I am the man for the job, because once again, I've been a driver for 17 years. I've been part of that pain point that you hear truckers talk about all the time. Truckers are spending on average 250 nights away from their family. The food option is horrible. And another thing that really, really painful in trucking, although it's an $800 billion industry, is heavily regulated, outdated, and there is no upward mobility in trucking. It's like you start as a driver, you die as a trucker, right? And there's really no way for drivers to move up, become fleet owners, become entrepreneurs, or become, company owners in that space. Lack of resources, lack of access to network, really make it hard for them. So I really felt like I had a moral duty and moral obligation to put my best foot forward, man, and build this company. Once again, it's not just to give truckers the tools to operate every day, but if you look at it, is today our country is short 900,000 drivers. 900,000 drivers. So for me, I find that appalling that we have such a shortage of truckers. Meanwhile, you have communities of young men, of young women, looking for opportunities that don't know which way to turn to. And trucking is the only one of the only industries that you can get in without no college degree and really start making about 80K, 90K a year, potentially up to 100K a year. So I really felt like I had a duty to build this platform to bring those opportunities back to those communities. So to answer the question, that's why I believe I am the man for the job. And instead of me saying I am the man for the job, maybe you should ask some truckers. They'll tell you that there's a man for the job, not only because he understands business, but understand the driver behavior, understand what we go through on a day-to-day. And they felt like, hey, look, you understand us, you can relate to us. You know, nobody's out there is building anything for us. Everybody's just building something to give the shipper better access, but no one is really building something that speaks directly to the driver pain point. And you can see a lot of drivers are really appreciative of taking that approach.
Yeah, I was not even expecting that answer. I think that was like, and I watched a few of your interviews, and I think your story already was pretty incredible. But like you sharing that is nuts. I didn't even have this schedule, but like I have to ask, like, I mean, you born in Haiti, come over here at like 15, and you were living in Brooklyn, you get divorced, your company is like going to shits, you got robbed, you have your son having health problems. Like, how the hell do you keep going? Like, what is keeping you going? Like, why didn't you just be like, I just need to just stop and like just wash windows or whatever it is? Like, what keeps you going?
Yeah, man, listen, sometimes I don't even think I know what keeps me going, right? Because I say the same thing all the time. Is like, okay, why am I dealing with all these challenges, dealing with investors, really trying to build a company when I could easily own 15, 20 trucks and make $100,000 a month and live the best life, right?
Right.
So I think it's much more, I've realized that it's not about me.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever experience that I've been through, my trials, my tribulations, my experience, my pain point, they're not about me. I think they went through me just so they can be able to inspire others to say, hey, look, don't give up. You know, regardless of what, we all go through challenges in life. We all face our own demon. But I think for me, it's just really showing people like, hey, look, man, it's like sometimes, you know, get knocked, you know, you get knocked 6, you know, wake up, you know, get up 7. So it's just like pretty much like you have to keep pushing. But for the most part, man, it's like when you want something so bad, when you see something in the industry so bad, which once again, for the past 17 years that I've lived it, it's like, I'm dying to see that change. And the fact that I'm not seeing anyone taking the approach to change it, I really feel like I'm the person to do the change. So I guess I won't stop until I change what it is that I aim to change. And my goal is to leave trucking a better place than I found it. My goal is to leave this world a better place than I found it. So I want to make sure that I go until that mission is accomplished. So I really don't know sometimes why I keep going. Even me, sometimes I ask myself, what the hell do I get the fuel to keep going? I get tired, I get exhausted, I get overwhelmed, I deal with anxiety, I deal with PTSD. But when you start talking about trucking, it's like, oh, all those things is out the window. Like, I'm excited, I'm ready to talk about it. So I think I'm truly passionate about the space. I really enjoy trucking. And, you know, even now, sometimes I know most people can say, hey, look, you're a successful founder, you've did this, you've done that. To me, it's like, no, man, don't not put me in that bucket, because I will still get up and get in the truck and drive it my damn self. So I think at the end of the day, it's just in my blood, man. It's just a hustle. So I think that's why I keep going, man. I just can't stop until I really solve that problem. Until at least, if I can at least turn 100,000 truckers into true entrepreneurs, if I could turn at least 100,000 young women and young men from my community to be successful themselves, then I think my job would be done. Then I'll be okay and rest.
That's fire. That's fire, man. To add on top of that, though, you were the first Black man to raise close to 1.1 million on the crowdfunding platform Republic. If those of you who don't know, you know, could you walk me through like what was it like being a trailblazer for that?
Oh man, what's funny is if people see this interview, they're gonna be like, okay, but this is probably Pierre's favorite shirt, because I just did an interview with Republic recently today with the same hoodie. So, but for me, I mean, Republic was really, really a great experience. You know, being the first of anything come with a lot of pressure, right? Because it's like, now, okay, well, you're the first person to do it, now show me. And I think the good thing about going towards the Republic route, it was just, you know, not only because it was challenging as raising capital from investors, but I think once again, it goes back to the point that, you know, I really wanted truckers to become shareholders in the company, right? Yeah. I wanted the truckers to be part of this ecosystem, because I've seen it from experience, right? Truckers work for multi-billion-dollar trucking companies, but once again, these truckers really don't have, you know, no ties to that company in the sense of, hey, look, if the company's successful, then me as a driver, I'm successful. So for me, I wanted to create that ecosystem. I wanted the drivers to have a home, something that they can invest in. And hopefully, you know, the company go IPO tomorrow, get acquired, become a conglomerate, at least the drivers themselves can reap the benefits. So I said, okay, well, it would be very hard for me to go out there and collect $1,000 check from a bunch of drivers, right?
Yeah.
So when I heard about Republic, it really made sense to actually really bring all the drivers and all the people in my network into one centralized place to actually be able to put their investment. And I think it really turned out well. And also it came out around the time with George Floyd, right? This is where, we witnessed one of the most racial unrest in this country. We really see the racial inequity in this country, how founders really, really struggle to raise capital, and, seeing exactly what Black people go through in this country. I think that was like a awakening moment for the investment world to really see exactly like, hey, look, at the end of the day, we're all not thugs, right? We're all not animals. And a lot of time they all paint us with the same brush that, hey, look, hey, he got a hoodie on, he might have a gun. But the reality is, they have young men, you have young men and young women in those communities that is trying every day to do the right thing, to build something. But the lack of access to resources and capital really prevent them from achieving their goals. So I think that really, Republic really saw that, and all the investors in there that I'm grateful for, they really saw what it is that we were doing. And not only that, all of that was happening in 2020 in the midst of a pandemic, was nothing moving. The only thing was moving was trucks. And I think that also resonated.
Y'all built for this.
Absolutely. And that resonated with a lot of people and said, okay, here's a guy building a company in a sense of, well, they look at it like, okay, trucking is kind of, recession proof, because regardless of what goes on in this country, people still have to eat, people still have to drink. And I think that really resonated with a lot of people. And, they really came in and kind of, closed around. So I was really excited for it. It was a great experience.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts about Republic, is that you really agree with their ethos in terms of like democratizing investing for anybody to invest in companies like yourself. So that's really cool to see that somebody like yourself is able to like really take advantage of that and launch your company through it. I'm curious as well, for people who don't know, who are entrepreneurs and maybe down the line want to get people to invest in their company. Like, how are you able to convince, investors like E40 and Chamillionaire and Damon? And I won't talk about the recent one you have, because I don't know if that's public yet, but you got some people like that, like to invest in your company without like any sort of prior experience starting a company.
Yeah, so I think also, again, so even when I got into the tech space and really wanted to learn how to build a tech company, like I said, I'm not technical at all, right? I don't code. Thank God this is what you have CTOs for. So I'm glad for Eric, our CTO. But for me, it was really the fact that I'm sorry, man. I think I lost my train of thoughts. I'm sorry. Please. What was the question again?
No, and you. So Kyrie Irving's an investor as well. But how did you go about convincing people like them to invest in your company without like any prior experience? In terms of starting a company.
Yeah, so the challenge was, when I first got in, I really didn't know how to pitch. I really, like I said, once again, I am not familiar with the tech ecosystem. I'm not familiar with how to raise capital. This is kind of like a new territory to me. So early on, I really embarrassed myself a lot of times, man, going to pitch competition, asking questions that I couldn't answer, didn't have the answers to. So, but I kept going back just for the hard questions, and I would go back and do my homework and learn how to answer them. So I was on a losing streak for a while. And then, I started winning pitch competition. To date, I've won a total of about $250,000 in pitch competition. So when I saw Chamillionaire had a pitch competition on his platform, Convos, and, and I saw that he had a first one for $10,000, which I applied for. And I didn't win because, once again, I'm pretty sure my pitch was horrible then. But with all the work that I did with practicing my pitch, then, he had the other one for $100,000, and I joined the platform. And I think, once again, it's just not that Chamillionaire sort of opportunity. I think other founders themselves that was also pitching became a big champion for me. They're like, oh my God, like, we need to support this guy up here. So pretty much seeing that, and I think it resonated a lot with Chamillionaire, understand what it is that we're trying to build. And Chamillionaire is a very sharp and smart dude as well. And he understands the struggle for minority founders. So him rolling up his sleeve and say, okay, hey, look, man, how do we put this together and get the pitch competition going, got us into Republic and really all of that. So I think that really, really worked out well. But I think all of that came from the numerous times that I've pitched and played myself and made a fool out of myself to eventually learn, how do I craft my story? How do I de-risk my business to make it more investable so investors can look at this business that can be something that can be potentially big as well. So that would really help where I am today.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to like my next question kind of goes back to like your story you're kind of been telling here. You talk about being a fool and how many times you've been knocked down, but like with that all being said, like what does failure really mean to you? Because it doesn't seem like it means the same, maybe to everybody else.
Nah, I mean, failure for me is when I stop.
Yeah.
The minute I give up, the minute I hang that flag up, then I fail, right? But I think too often, a lot of time, people mistake, temporary defeat for failure, right?
Yeah.
So you can get defeated temporarily, but it doesn't mean you're a failure. So I think for me is learning that early on really kind of show me, okay, I got knocked down on my face. I look like a fool. Let me dust it off and get back up again. And I think as long as I have breath in my lungs, as long as I'm breathing, I will always get up and swing another punch. So I think failure for me, it doesn't exist. I think I only fail when I'm 6 feet deep.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. The last question I'll ask you before we go to like a little lightning round is, if you think back to when you were starting the company, like what were maybe like one or two things you wish you knew back then?
True, a lot. Definitely a lot. Definitely. The meaning of co-founders, right? That was number one thing. It was a valuable lesson that I had to learn myself is that, you had to learn who you're getting into bed with. You understand? You have to learn, your company structure. Having a strong attorney is ideal in your early stage, making sure that the company is structured the right way. Having a co-founder, once again, is not just a co-founder in a sense that can just help build a business, but make sure you guys have that relationship. Make sure that your co-founder is as much of a hustler as much as you are, because your co-founder is a reflection of you, right?
Right.
And I think it's like, you can't be a pit bull and run around with a bunch of chihuahuas. So as you, the founder, it is your duty to find that true solid co-founder that's going to be able to have your back regardless to thick and thin, whether the company's doing great, whether the company's doing bad, you're going to need that person. So for me, that was one of the big lessons that I've learned is how do you screen talent, right? And once again, if it's in supply chain logistics, I could really make a quick decision and say, okay, well, this person is the man for the job, or this woman is the one for the job. But when it comes to tech now, when it comes to really building a conglomerate company, building a corporation, there's a lot of things that I didn't know. Like I always say, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I think it's very important that founders really lean on a lot of support, lean on mentors to really make those key decisions, because those key decisions can make or break your company. So for me, I learned that early on. Had I had early mentors to rely on when I was making key strategic decisions, I think the outcome would have been different, but I'm not going to cry about it because it's a lesson learned. But I think those are the things that I want founders to understand. And when you're making decisions about your company, this is your baby. It's like, you're not going to just have a baby and just drop your baby at any friend and be like, hey, take care of my baby for me for the next 30 minutes. You want to make sure that friend understand what it's like to have a baby. You're going to make sure that that friend is very careful with the baby. You want to make sure that friend really know they have love in their heart. You're not just going to give your baby to anyone. And I think that was one of the brutal lessons that I had to learn. This is my baby, and I had to be very protective about my baby on who I share it with. So every founder should really, and I'm not saying, don't take that as a sense to say, well, this is mine, and don't let nobody in and help you grow that baby. But at the same token, please be mindful of who you sharing your baby around.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, especially as you're trying to build your team. And
Absolutely.
the whole mentor thing too. I mean, if you're growing up in the inner city, sometimes you don't even have somebody who could necessarily direct you on how to find a co-founder or how to pitch to an investor. So it's a lot of failure by default.
By default, absolutely. But I don't regret them actually, because now they make me who I am today. And I think now I want to be able to take those lessons, those learning, and be able to share it with upcoming entrepreneurs themselves.
That's awesome. So with that being said, at the end of my interviews, I usually do like a quick little lightning round. I'll fire off some questions. So no pressure here, Pierre. So the first one is, who is an entrepreneur that you try to embody? Is there anybody who maybe you were growing up that you kind of looked down with like, yeah, that's how I kind of want to do it?
To be honest with you, no. Once again, these are the things that, we didn't have in our community to look up to and say, okay, well, I want to be like this person and I want to be like this person.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people is always looking for that, to say, well, I want to be like this person. But for me, to be honest with you, I wanted to be a better version of myself. So that was the person that I wanted to be. I know what I wanted. And to be honest with you, everything that's happening today, where I am today, I envision myself doing them way long ago when I was in the same shitty community. So I always kind of look at myself and a higher light. And I always tell people, your current situation does not determine your final destination. So for me, I always think like, okay, well, I can become the next president in Haiti. I can become the next best CEO in America that own a fleet of 5,000 trucks. So that was always my dream. That was always the people that I looked up to. What's the word they call it? My alter ego. That was the person that I really wanted to be like, yeah, absolutely.
I dig it. I dig it. Okay, next question. Which investor were you the most excited to meet with?
Arlan Hamilton.
Yes.
Hamilton was one of the exciting investors I really wanted to meet with because she is a hustler. And if you hear her story, man, coming from where she came from and really overcoming all of that and becoming a VC once again, and look what she's doing, right? She took her experience, she took her story, not to raise capital to better herself. She's raising capital to help other founders. So Arlan Hamilton was always one of the investors that I wanted to meet with, I wanted to work with. And when I met her the first time, it was really breathtaking. She's very down to earth, super, super cool. And, she didn't invest right away. So the good thing about it is we built the relationship first. We communicated back and forth until we got to a point where she was able to invest and she really invest. And not only she's an investor, but Arlan is somebody that I would consider a great mentor as well, that can really help you navigate these muddy waters because she's been through the mud herself.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. And I've watched Arlan's work from afar. I follow her on all the social channels. So like, she's definitely somebody to embody, and I continue like to study her work. So that's
Absolutely.
fire. Next question is, who makes the best Haitian food in Brooklyn?
I do.
I
do. And I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm proud of my mother. So okay, so if we're gonna do restaurants, there was a restaurant on Flatbush in Clarkson. I don't remember the name of it, but they had the best Haitian food.
Ooh.
I don't remember the name of it.
You gotta give me the name, man. I'm trying to.
Is it Claudette? Damn, I forgot the name of it. But that was one of the best Haitian restaurants in Brooklyn. They're still there today, but they changed the name. Still one of the best food in Brooklyn. Second is definitely my mother. Well, my mother first. Let me I give a restaurant shout out first. She'll kill me. She's the first, right? And then the restaurant. Then the third is me. And that's another skill that people don't know. I am a hell of a chef when it comes to the Haitian culture. Man, I could whip some sauce, I could whip some white rice. I get down in the kitchen, so I think I'll be the best one on that one.
I'm here for it. I know there's this spot called Grand Champs in Bed-Stuy. It's pretty good. And it's a few spots
pretty good.
Grand Champs that have like have come in and out, but I'm gonna check out the other spot you mentioned too.
There's a new one on Church between 31st and 32nd. It's right next to the T-Mobile store. They got the best tasso in town.
You see me writing it down. I'm already here.
Yeah. It's on Church between 31st and 32nd. Please check them out. Their food is amazing.
I'm dead. I'm already there. The last question I got you is one that I ask on every podcast, and it's, what is a music lyric or a movie line that you live by?
Good question. The movie line, not even the movie line, the entire movie I live by is my favorite movie of all time is 300 Spartan.
Oh, I like that.
This is my movie. This is exactly a movie of an underdog. This is a movie of a leader that didn't care that he didn't have this much soldier, but he believed in what he was fighting for, and he was willing to die for it. And I think I embody that every day, that I'm willing to die for what I believe in, for what I think is right. So that movie is my best and favorite movie of all time.
That's it. That's drop the mic there. Pierre, thank you so much again. For all those who don't know, again, this is Pierre Laguerre, CEO and founder of Fleeting. Thank you so much, Pierre, for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate it. I look forward to connecting. If you're in Brooklyn, let's definitely do lunch.
Say less.